My friends and my family, this is Trevor Chapman, modern day man, entrepreneur, achiever, purveyor of the good life, student of life, marketer. After over 10 years in business, tens of millions of dollars, I've learned this one thing. There's too much noise. It takes tactics and strategy. You can't buy it, you earn it through experience. Failure after failure hones the craft. You must become a warrior. It's time to run. The experience you can't buy. You had to have earned it. It's my turn to give back and contribute. I share all of my lessons from 7 to 8 and from 8 to 9 figures. We'll see if it goes from 9 to 10, but I'm gonna give it all to you. Consistency, persistence, dedication, vision, time, discipline, work. I'm gonna give it all to you so that you learn from where I failed and you learn from my experience. My brothers, this is your daily fuel. Welcome back, my friends. Excited to come to you today. This is probably actually going to be 2 parts. I'm recording one section in the morning. I've got a bunch of meetings, and then I'm going to finish it tonight. The message that I want to give you right now, though, is simply this. It is unlikely that in the beginning, you are going to push timidity and self-consciousness so far into the corner that it doesn't affect you. Like, it's unlikely that you think that you're going to do something great without being self-conscious about it, or without having feelings of timidity. So expect it, and guess what? Do it timid. How many times do you think I don't smirk or shrug my shoulders when I hear the opening of my own podcast, people? Of course it's over the top. Of course it's too much. But if I was self-conscious about it, if I was timid, I'd never put it out in the first place. You just gotta do it anyway. You know, the bottom line is so few people actually care about what others do on a long-term basis. Yeah, in the short term, haha, this idiot's got a ridiculous, this is Sparta opening. Well, whatever. A guy, I'm not gonna interact with him anyway, right? For some people, it resonates. Hey, it resonates with me. I enjoyed making it. It was fun. True, I locked myself downstairs where no one could hear, because if I was doing it in front of a group of people, I may not give it my all, because for some reason, evolutionarily, we are designed to blend in. And when we do things that other people are not doing, we don't blend in, and all of a sudden the, hey, don't get kicked out of the tribe feeling kicks in, and it stops us from doing anything extraordinary. So are you ready? Are you self-conscious about what you're doing? Do it self-conscious. Are you afraid of what you're doing? Do it afraid. Are you aware that others might hate you for what you're doing? Do it with haters. Are you concerned that it might not work? Do it, knowing it might not work. What does every variable have in common? The first 2 words, do it. With whatever. See, sometimes we're like, hey, I'm afraid of doing that. So before I do that, I'm going to try and eliminate fear. Unlikely, my friends. The way you eliminate fear is by doing it. So instead of waiting until you eliminate fear, do it afraid. Geez, I need to wait until I have customers to launch this. Do it while waiting for customers. While launching. Just do it, my friends. And here we are, my friends, with part 2 of today's podcast. As promised, I had a morning section. And this is the evening section now edited in, spliced in to be the second half. I had an interesting call today. It was with an individual that 3 years ago started a podcast management agency. He had seen me rise on the charts, which I'm grateful to you for. That's only because of you, so thank you. And wanted to chat with me about him, what would the word be? Managing the podcast. I asked him about his backstory, and I think it's pertinent that if you understand his backstory and where he came from, that you can, do you remember yesterday's post about the iron bar? This is an iron bar principle. So let me share it with you real quick.
This individual, young man, went to school for music production. In other words, he could edit audio really well. The problem is, so can everyone else who ever goes to school for music production, and there's only a small amount of people that actually get the really good jobs in editing music, because what used to be an art, now computers do for you. You push a button, the algorithm kicks in, and it optimizes everything, right? So what's left is just kind of to edit clips together, whereas it used to be this masterpiece where, similar to disc jockeys back in the day. Long story short, he finds that he doesn't have money because he's barely making ends meet, and decides that he's going to do something that he's proud of, but sticks with his core competency. This is something that I consistently talk about, which is sticking with your core competency, not deviating from what you're good at, just taking it over the line into something new. He reached out to a few people that had a podcast and said, I'd love to edit your podcast for you for free. Your content is great, but the audio isn't so hot. And he got that gig for free. They sent him the audio. He did the analysis and pushed a button to make it sound better. And little by little, he started taking over people's podcasts, managing them, getting the ads for them, producing them. Until now, this is a man who takes care of Lewis Howes' podcast, Ty Lopez's podcast, and many, many other podcasts that rank very high. I bring this up with you because he took his iron bar, editing audio, and instead of just tossing out a horseshoe, he went the route of creating the watch springs. How can you turn your iron bar at least into a horseshoe? And if you're already at the horseshoe, then into needles, and finally into a watch spring, the most valuable thing that you can do with it. He's free now. He travels. He told me that the last 2 months he's been on the road, has his team in place, still handles people, would love to work with us on our podcast. We'll see what happens. But I loved his story. So my question to you, because undoubtedly, look, life is what life is. One of the things that hit me on the side of the head when I reached my adult life was that it was actually not always fun. I just couldn't fathom that, because as a child, when I grew up, when I was in charge of my own time, I always had fun, as children do. You never do stuff that's not fun. And you can call me, ridiculous for not assuming this, but I didn't assume that. I assumed that as an adult, I'd engage in only the things that I wanted to engage in, therefore my life would be amazing. And of course, the sad truth hits that most of life is engaging in things where you might have something else that you would rather engage in. Even if you love your job, you could be sitting on a beach in Brazil right now, right? I mean, there's always this dichotomy. So I'm not going to get into the philosophy of how you view that. We can talk about that another time. But what I do want to bring up is that many of my listeners right now are possibly in the same position where they found themselves in a job that wasn't what they expected. Audio editing without all the glam. Or if you're an entrepreneur. A few episodes back, I talked about the mountain that you're carrying, you were only meant to climb. I read that actually on Lewis Howes' Instagram page, something like that. And how we climb. And I'm heavily into mountaineering, and so concepts around this resonate with me. For those of you who are carrying the mountain, for those of you that are working on the iron bar, how can you take that skill and create watch springs out of it? Who would have thought that music editing the audio of music, could have turned into a passion podcast business? What are your great ideas? You can do them. You've just got to start. You don't have to give everything up now. You don't have to quit your job and put everything on the line, but you can start walking down the road. And here's the most important thing. I've said this before. The only thing standing between you right now and what you want most is doing it. All my love and all my respect. Until Until tomorrow, my friends. Trevor out.